Welcome to Jesus or Muhammad. We're live in ABN. We have Sam and David both live in the studio. Today we have a very packed schedule and a special topic. We will be discussing what Muslim apologists are claiming about Jesus, and both Sam and David will be refuting their statements and claims. And we will also be taking a look at a few video clips also. A lot of Muslims are saying that God cannot be born, so Jesus cannot be God, and they're saying nobody's ever seen God, so there's no way that Jesus can be God. And they're making all these other statements and claims, and so what we're going to do right now is take a quick look at a clip, but before that I'd like to introduce you both to Sam and David. Welcome back to the show, both of you, and Brother David, if you just want to give them a quick introduction about the clip that we're going to see right now.
Yes, we're going to look at a couple of clips of Dr. Zakir Naik during this program. There are tons of clips we could look at, and in the coming months we'll certainly look at more. But Dr. Naik has an amazing ability to pack so many errors into a small space that it'll take us a while to get through them. Now, as Sam and I debate Muslims, we're constantly told, hey, you better not mess with Dr. Zakir Naik, he'll mess you up. Now, the problem is we would absolutely love to debate Zakir Naik, but Zakir Naik will not debate anyone who has debate experience. Show me a debate with Zakir Naik where he faced a respected Christian debater. I'd like to see one. Since we can't face him in public debate, we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of his videos and see how his claims stand up to scrutiny. So let's take a look at the first video.
एक गैर मुस्लिम हैं और इंडिया से उर्दू जानते हैं, समझते हैं। उन्होंने सवाल पूछा है कि क्या इस्लामी रियासत में हमें अपने मजहब की तबलीग की और अपनी इबादतगाहों की तामीर की इजाजत होती है? अगर होती है तो फिर सऊदी अरेबिया में और दूसरे इस्लामी मुल्कों में चर्च बनाने की परमिशन क्यों नहीं मिलती, जबकि आप मुसलमान लंदन और पेरिस में अपनी मस्जिदें बनाते हैं?
चंद इस्लामिक मुल्कों में, मिसाल के तौर पर सऊदी अरेबिया एक्सेट्रा में, propagation of any other religion is prohibited. Even construction of any place of worship is also prohibited. और इसमें कई गैर मुस्लिम कहते हैं कि हम जब आपको अलाउ करते हमारे कंट्री में आते, यूरोप में आते, अमेरिका में आते, तबलीग करते, मॉस्क बनाते, तो हमें क्यों नहीं परमिशन है? इसका मैं सिंपल सवाल पूछता हूं उन्हें कि मैं गैर मुसलमान से ये पूछता हूं, अगर आप एक स्कूल के प्रिंसिपल है और अगर आप मैथ्स टीचर चुनना चाहते हैं और 3 टीचर आते हैं, एक टीचर से आप और सवाल पूछे 2 जमा 2 कितना? पहला टीचर कहता है कि 2 जमा 2 3, दूसरा टीचर कहता है 2 जमा 2 4, तीसरा टीचर कहता है 2 जमा 2 6। तो मैं ये उनसे पूछता हूं, वो टीचर जो कहता है 2 जमा 2 3 या 2 जमा 2 6, क्या आप उसको स्कूल में रखेंगे? तो वो कहते हैं नहीं। मतलब क्यों? आप उसको पढ़ाने देंगे? बोलते नहीं पढ़ाने देंगे। क्यों नहीं देंगे? क्योंकि उसमें मैथमेटिक्स का सही इल्म नहीं है। इसी तरीके से जहां दीन का सवाल है, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सुम्मा अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह, हम मुसलमान जानते हैं कि इन्न दीन इंदल्लाह इस्लाम। सूरह इमरान सूरह नंबर 3 आयत नंबर 19 के आयत है कि सिर्फ एक ही सही दीन है, वो है इस्लाम। और अल्लाह ताला फरमाते हैं सूरह इमरान सूरह नंबर 3 आयत नंबर 85 में कि इस्लाम के अलावा कोई भी बगैर मज़हब अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला कबूल नहीं करेंगे। तो दीन के मामले में हम जानते हैं इस्लाम ही सिर्फ सही दीन है, इसीलिए हम दूसरे दीन का प्रोपगेशन अलाउ नहीं करते। जहां तक कि दूसरा सवाल है कि हम चर्च बनाने देंगे या टेम्पल बनाने देंगे, जब दीन ही गलत है और चर्च में ईसा अलैहिस्सलाम को पूजना गलत है, बुत परस्ती गलत है, इसीलिए हम गलत चीज हमारे मुल्क में अलाउ नहीं करेंगे। लेकिन ये सिर्फ सऊदी अरेबिया और चंद ममालिक है, सब मुस्लिम कंट्रीज को नहीं।
ये थोड़ी सी बात जो है, यानी वो तो समझ रहे हैं कि उनका मजहब ठीक है
जी,
और हम भी समझ रहे हैं कि हमारा मजहब ठीक है, गैर मुस्लिम समझ रहे हैं उनका मजहब ठीक है। अब लोगों के सामने जाहिर है कि उनको आके
एक समझ लीजिए बात
जी,
मैथ्स के अंदर वो गैर मुसलमान 2 + 2 = 3 पढ़ाने देंगे अपने स्कूल में, क्योंकि वो कंफर्म है कि 2 + 2 4 ही है। तो दीन के मामले में हम कंफर्म नहीं। अगर वो कंफर्म होते तो गलत चीज को पढ़ाने देंगे। उसी तरीके से हम जब रूल कर रहे हैं कौन सी कंट्री, हमें 100% पता है कि इस्लाम के अलावा दिगर मज़ाहिब सही नहीं है।
यहाँ कोई ह्यूमन राइट्स का मसला, कोई ऐसी बात
ह्यूमन राइट्स का सवाल नहीं। हाँ, अगर कोई प्रैक्टिस करना चाहता है मुस्लिम कंट्री में, अपने घर में प्रोपगेट नहीं कर सकता है। इसी तरीके से कोई टीचर अपने दिमाग में सोचता है 2 + 2 = 3 तो प्रॉब्लम नहीं, लेकिन बच्चे लोग को पढ़ाएंगे तो हम इसको बिल्कुल ये नहीं करेंगे कि हमारे बच्चों का पढ़ाओ 2 + 2 = 3। इसी तरीके से साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी में लोग माहिर है. हम साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी के लिए लोग को बुलाते हैं अमेरिका से, यूरोप से. आओ हमारे मुल्क में साइंस और टेक्नोलॉजी में आप माहिर है, हम आपसे सीखेंगे, लेकिन दीन के मामले में हम माहिर है अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह. तो इसी तरीके से जहां तक के उनका सवाल है, उन्हें अभी तक के इतना दे आर नॉट कंफर्म्ड इट. सो वी आर ट्राइंग टू गेट देम टू द राइट पार्ट ऑफ इस्लाम. देयरफॉर वी प्रोपेगेट आवर रिलीजन टू द नॉन मुस्लिम्स.
Okay, real quick before I turn it over to David to go ahead and discuss that video, I want to remind our viewers that the lines are open. We will be here all night till about 1 a.m., so give us a call live in the studio at 248-416-1300. Make sure that you call in, get your questions and comments in. Tonight's topic is refuting Muslim apologists, so make sure that you call in 248-416-1300. Mike's all yours. Go ahead.
Well, notice that in that video, Dr. Zakir Naik was defending oppression of non-Muslims. He's saying if you're a non-Muslim in a land where Muslims have power and authority, you will not be permitted to preach your religion, to share your religion with other people. You can't do that. So he is defending oppression here, and he defends it in an interesting way. He makes a correct point, namely that if you owned a school and you were going to hire someone to be a math teacher, and you're looking for candidates, and you see that someone believes that 2 + 2 = 3, or that someone believes 2 + 2 = 6, you certainly wouldn't hire that person. The only person you're going to accept is someone who says that 2 + 2 = 4. So, similarly, why would you allow a Christian to teach in your land when the Christian is going to say things that are false? This apparently makes sense to Muslims, but it's important to keep in mind Dr. Naik is saying that Islam is so true that it's just like the claim that 2 + 2 = 4. That's how certain Muslims are that Islam is the true religion. And he's saying we're even willing to oppress people. We're even willing to oppress non-Muslims because we're that certain. Islam is the religion that teaches 2 + 2 = 4, because the claim that Muhammad is a prophet of God, that the Quran is the word of God, is that certain. So it's so certain that any other religion should not be tolerated because they're all wrong. Now, the question I'd like to focus on now is Islam that certain? Is it that obviously true? Because if we say that, let's say 1 + 1 = 2, if anyone doubts this, I say, well, here's one pen and here's another pen, and I put them together. How many do you have? You have 2. And if you don't see that, then you're irrational. There's something wrong if you do not see that 1 + 1 = 2. So is there just something wrong with someone if they say that Muhammad is not a prophet or that the Quran is not the word of God? Well, let's think about some of the facts here so we can see whether that claim is true. Think about Muhammad. Muhammad is the only prophet in all of history who, after he started receiving revelations, was convinced that his revelations were demonic in origin. When Muhammad began receiving revelations, he was convinced that he was demon-possessed. He went to Khadijah, and she called her cousin Waraka, and they convinced him. They convinced him, no, you're not demon-possessed. You're a prophet of God. That's why this is happening to you. So think about this. Your faith, Muslims, your faith in Islam rests on your belief that Khadijah and Waraka could correctly identify a prophet of God. So I would like to invite you to call us and tell us why you trust Khadijah and Waraka. Because remember, Muhammad thought he was demon-possessed when he started hearing voices or whatever you want to say. Muhammad thought he was demon-possessed. It was other people who weren't there, who didn't see what he saw. They convinced him that he was a prophet. So your faith in Islam actually rests on them. So Muhammad is the only prophet in history who thought he was demon-possessed. Muhammad is the only prophet in history who became suicidal because of his revelations. Muhammad tried to hurl himself off a cliff because he believed he was demon-possessed. Muhammad is the only prophet in history to deliver a message to his followers, to bow down in honor of the revelation, and then to come back later and say, oh, by the way, those verses that I delivered to you, sorry, Satan made me do that. The devil made me do it. Surah 53, that's in the Quran today, originally promoted polytheism. Later on, Muhammad came and changed it and said, sorry, the devil tricked me into delivering what are now called the satanic verses. So Muhammad is the only prophet in history to do these things, and Muhammad is the only prophet in history to be the victim of black magic. According to Sahih al-Bukhari, your most trusted collection of narrations about Muhammad, Muhammad was the victim of black magic. A Jewish magician cast a spell on Muhammad, and it gave Muhammad delusional thoughts and false beliefs. Muhammad is the only one. But we know a lot more about Muhammad. Muhammad, of course, had sex with a 9-year-old girl. And if you think that's a problem, it's certainly not a problem in Islam. Muhammad himself did it, and the Quran itself allows it. The Quran in Surah 65:4, if you don't trust my interpretation, read your greatest commentators. Your greatest commentators all agree that Surah 65:4 allows Muslim men to have sex with girls who haven't even reached puberty and to divorce them after having sex with them. Muhammad had more wives than his own revelations allow. Surah 4:3 says that Muslims can have up to 4 wives. Muhammad had at least 9 at one time. How could he justify this? Well, Allah to the rescue. Allah came and rescued Muhammad by giving him a revelation saying that he could have more wives than everyone else could have. Muhammad married the wife of his own adopted son. He did this after he saw her practically naked and he began lusting after her. According to the Quran, Allah wanted Muhammad to lust after her. Now, how did Muhammad justify this? Well, once again, Allah to the rescue. Revelation started coming down saying that this was okay. When Muhammad's wife Sauda, as we talked about yesterday, when Muhammad's wife Sauda became old and fat, Muhammad wanted to divorce her so he could trade her in for a younger, prettier woman. And Sauda obviously didn't want to be divorced at such an old age. It's not like she's going to be able to get another husband. And so she was willing to give up some of her rights as a wife, as a woman. And the Quran praised her because of this. So once again, when Muhammad does something that most of us would consider wrong and immoral, Allah to the rescue. Allah comes down to rescue him with some special revelations. Muhammad had sex with his slave girls, even though he already had 9 wives. He even got one of them pregnant. Her name was Mary the Copt. And it's interesting, if you want to know the origin of the revelation of Surah 66:1, Muhammad promised his wives that he would stop having sex with his slave girls. And after making this promise, Surah 66:1 came down saying, Muhammad, why are you forbidding what Allah has not, Allah didn't tell you to stop having sex with your slave girl. What are you doing? So this is, Muhammad received a revelation allowing him to break his oath to his wives. Allah to the rescue. Muhammad assassinated people for making fun of him. Read about Abu Afak and Asma bint Marwan. These were people, and many others, by the way, these were people who criticized Muhammad or criticized Islam and were assassinated, sometimes in bed while asleep, for speaking out against Muhammad and Islam. Muhammad started a war with Mecca when he had a chance to live in peace in Medina. The Muslims had left Mecca. They had a chance to live in peace, but Muhammad didn't want to live in peace. He started robbing the Meccan caravans, which ultimately led to war. Muhammad executed hundreds of Jews for trying to defend themselves once they realized that Muhammad was going to eliminate them. And by the way, they were right. When they became convinced that Muhammad was trying to get rid of the Jews, they were absolutely right. Muhammad said in Sahih Muslim 4366, I will expel the Christians and the Jews from the Arabian Peninsula and will not leave any but Muslims. Muhammad had the plan to get rid of Christians and Jews. These people tried to defend themselves, and there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. Muhammad said things that totally contradict all of history. For instance, Muhammad said that Jesus didn't die on the cross. Historians across the board, whether they're atheists or agnostic or whatever, agree that Jesus died by crucifixion, and this is simply, to deny this is absolutely absurd as far as history is concerned. Muhammad recycled stories that are based on known forgeries, and he passed them off as the infallible word of God. Stories about Jesus speaking when he was a baby, or Jesus giving life to clay birds. Everyone knows that these were based on forgeries. No scholar takes these stories seriously, and yet we find them in the Muslim sources, in the Quran, and Muhammad couldn't tell the difference between a false story based on a forgery and a true story. Muhammad tortured people for money. Read about Kanana. Muhammad ordered his followers to light a fire on Kanana's chest so that he would tell them where the money was hidden. Muhammad supported his ministry by robbing people. Why bother working hard when you can just rob people? Muhammad enslaved thousands of people. He allowed his followers to rape their female captives. Muhammad also raped his female captives. He would take the most beautiful captives back to his own tent. Muhammad told his followers that it's okay to beat their wives into submission. He told his followers that women are stupid and that their testimony is unreliable. Muhammad taught his followers to believe in a God who loves them only and no one else. Muhammad adopted idolatrous pagan practices like kissing the black stone and bowing down to the Kaaba. And these are part of Islam now, and they were pagan practices. Now, we could, of course, go on, but think about all of this. What could Dr. Zakir Naik possibly say to show that Islam is as obviously true as 2 + 2 = 4, so much so that Muslims have a right to oppress people? What's he going to say? I mean, we look at the Muslim sources, it's problem after problem after problem. I mean, come on. Muhammad is suicidal because he thinks he's demon-possessed. He's delivering revelations and taking them back, saying Satan tricked him into doing it, and people are giving him false beliefs by black magic, and this is the man that we're all supposed to trust as much as we trust basic mathematics. What could Dr. Naik possibly say? What's he going to say? That science shows that Islam is true? This seems to be his favorite argument. And what happens when we actually examine that critically? We look at Surah 1886, which says that Alexander the Great traveled so far west, he found the place where the sun sets. According to the Quran, the sun sets in a pool of murky water. According to Surah 67:5, stars are missiles that God uses to shoot demons. When you see a shooting star, it's because a demon tried to sneak into heaven, and Allah became angry and hurled a star at him. That is so wrong in so many ways. It's absolutely absurd. We read in the Quran that there are 7 earths, and we know that these earths are flat, because according to the Quran, the earth is flat. You have these 7 earths stacked up like pancakes. Islam gets it wrong in almost every way. According to the Quran, semen is formed between the backbone and the ribs. Is this right? No. Over and over and over again, and if you'd like to go into more detail, we certainly can. But over and over and over again, we look at scientific claims that the Quran is making, and they're absolutely wrong and false. We haven't even looked at the hadith. We haven't even looked at the hadith where Muhammad says if a fly falls into your drink, dunk the fly in the drink, because even though one of the wings has a disease, the other wing has a cure for the disease. This is false. Flies don't go around spreading cures for diseases on their wings. Muhammad told his followers that they could use water out of the well of Buddha. This was a water that they used to throw dead animals into, and excrement and all kinds of things. This was their garbage. This was their garbage area. They threw it in the water. Muhammad said, water is not made impure by anything. My friends, you will die if you take Muhammad's commands seriously. You could actually die if you start going around and doing what Muhammad tells you to do. And Dr. Naik he's a medical doctor. He knows this. So think about this. Every single fact we can investigate about Muhammad tells us that he was a false prophet. And any argument that Muslims give us to show that Muhammad was a true prophet turns out to actually be evidence against him. In other words, if Muslims say, look at the science, well, the science is all wrong. So if you're basing your belief on science, Islam is false. Or if Muslims say, Muhammad was prophesied in the Bible. Guess what? According to the Bible, Muhammad's a false prophet. According to the Bible, if you deliver a revelation, and that revelation does not come from God, you're a false prophet. And Muhammad delivered the satanic verses and came back and said, I'm sorry, that revelation did not come from God. If Muhammad had delivered the satanic verses during the time of Moses, Moses would have ordered his followers to pick up stones and stone him to death as a false prophet. You Muslims say you believe in Moses. Doesn't it bother you that Moses would have killed Muhammad? So this is what we have when we actually investigate the issue, and I just want to know, how can you say that this is so clear? Islam is so obviously clear that it's just like saying 2 + 2 = 4. And it's so obviously true, the Muslims are the authorities on the issue of religion, that Muslims have the right to oppress non-Muslims and not give them the right to speak about their beliefs.